Welcome to a new video, and in this video I want to do a camera comparison between the brand new P50 Pro against the Mate 40 Pro. So which one is better? You decide, and let's get started. This is now the super wide angle cine camera on the Mate 40 Pro. This is the high dynamic range and the colors that you can expect, and the stabilization. For stabilization I will go up some stairs here. It has a fairly wide field of view, but it's not as wide as on the P50 Pro, as you will see in a second. And it is a very large sensor with huawei color filter array, which will help in darker situations, of course. And stabilization is pretty nice, and even if you record right now with the ultra wide angle, you can switch to the main lens, which I will demonstrate you right now. So let's go here, and now it should be the main lens, and now it's the main lens, and the main lens has this nice creamy bokeh behind me that you can hopefully see, and my face in focus. It's using a very large, also huawei sensor, 50 megapixel, 1/1.23 inch sized sensor. I think this is one of the top 3 largest sensors that you can find in a smartphone. So very good, and yeah, large sensor. And it is indeed the same sensor that you will find on the P50 Pro. So let's try out the P50 Pro to see if there's any difference. This is now the P50 Pro and the main camera lens, because it doesn't have any cine lens anymore. So it's using the main camera lens for video, which has this nice background blur. And tell me in the comments if you see any difference to the Mate 40 Pro's processing of the same sensor, because it is only processing. It's using even the same chipset as I'm using the Kirin processor on my P50 Pro here as well. And this is what you can expect in terms of background blur and colors and stabilization as well. And the neat little trick, I can also go to the ultra wide angle, which is an 13 megapixel ultra wide angle, and you will see in a second it has a much wider field of view. So let's just do it right now. So I can quickly go to the wide angle, and the ultra wide angle is so much wider than on the Mate 40 Pro that it is almost incredible how they did it. I have the slight idea that maybe they reduced the size of the sensor a little bit, but I'm not so sure, because there's no official data, and I'm not sure how to get it without opening the device itself, which I don't really want to do. So I cannot tell you anything about the sensor size, or if it's using huawei as the color filter array to gain more light, or if it is using the 40 megapixel monochrome sensor on the P50 Pro to get the more in terms of details in darker conditions. So this is the ultra wide angle on the P50 Pro, and in terms of video, stabilization, colors, and even in these darker situations where I went up the hill there, which one has the better video camera system? Write it down in the comment section. For a good vlogging camera, the smartphone also needs to have a very good selfie cam, and I'm using the Mate 40 Pro's selfie cam right now in its default configuration, which is 0.8 times magnification. So it can get wider to let's click it here, to 0.6 times, I think it is. And I can also go closer up to 1 time, which will look like this. But what this camera lacks is autofocus. So if I want to put something like this, a photo that I shot, and put it very close, I'm not sure if it is really focusing. I think it is not focusing. I'm sharp, this is not sharp. So it hasn't got autofocus on the Mate 40 Pro's front camera. Anyway, you still have the flexibility to go into a bit of a wider field of view, which is also pretty cool. And I think stabilization is also nice, colors are nice, and of course the microphone quality that you can get for daylight vlogging purposes. Why not? Let's see how the P50 Pro scopes and compares to this one here. What we can see here is the P50 Pro's front-facing selfie cam in its also 0.8 magnification, and I can go to the wide one, which is approximately also 0.6 times, so approximately as wide as the Mate 40 Pro's selfie cam. And I also can go to 1 times, which looks like this, which is a lot more cropped in, I think, than on the Mate 40 Pro. And for vlogging, maybe not the best. This one is, I think, better for vlogging. And again, I can use my microphone. You can see HDR is kind of working. Stabilization hopefully working a little bit better than on the Mate 40 Pro, because I don't like the selfie cam of the Mate 40 Pro too much when it comes to stabilization, because it's not as stable as I would expect it. But one very large, significant advantage of the P50 Pro's selfie cam is that it has autofocus. So if I want to show you a nice sample picture on my Mate 40 Pro, I can do so. As you can see, it is now sharpening up and should have now the focus point set to the phone. Is it doing the sharpening stuff? Well, it's focusing on me. Now it is focusing, as you can see. So it is focusing. It has a focusing option, which is nice, and you can focus very, very close even. So this is why I tried this close-up shot of my phone. So if I go very, very close, it should be able to focus on it. Very, very close even. It has like a few centimeters only focusing distance. So this should work fine. So this is why I think in terms of selfie cam, even though we don't have this 3D sensing stuff here on the top of the Mate 40 Pro, we have a nice selfie cam as well, 13 megapixels, the same resolution as on the Mate 40 Pro. What do you think about it? Write it down in the comment section. And what I will do right now is, even if it's a bit of a cloudy day, not so much sun outside, I will do a bit of photographing and will take my Mate 40 Pro's main camera to test and do some comparisons with the P50 Pro's. So let's take a look. So now to the photos. On the left we can see the Mate 40 Pro, and on the right we can see the P50. When it comes to normal shots taken with the main camera lens and the main sensor, you don't notice much of a difference. You can see that the Mate 40 Pro maybe has a more creamy, nicer bokeh here, but this also only depends on because it was like focusing on this here, and on the P50 Pro I had a slightly different angle and it was focusing here instead of here, and so you get a slightly different kind of picture with less creamy bokeh, as you can see right here. When we take a look at other pictures, just like for example in general color rendition, the P50 Pro has the better color rendition system because it has a special sensor for sensing colors and correcting the colors. So what you can see here, we have a yellow tint on the Mate 40 Pro, and this is in fact also due to the RYYB sensor used a lot of times in the Mate 40 Pro. So most of the time you're using the ultra wide or the main lens, and then the RYYB sensor will be used. And I think also the zoom lens has RYYB, so it has a yellowish tint to it because they are more yellowish sensors or pixel in the color array, so it is more yellowish. On the P50 we still have the RYYB sensors, but we have a color correction sensor as well that corrects the color of the sky. As you can see here, it is bluer than this greenish kind of tone that you get, and the same you get overall as well in the bricks, which are more yellowish here and more true to life here. When we take a look at the sign here, you can also see that there's either a lot of more sharpening applied on the P50 Pro, or in general it is a sharper picture because it's clearly more visible, clearly more readable. This is at 100. We can just go in a bit and you can see this now at 280 something %. You can see that there is clearly more detail as well visible in this text. It's more clear in general. So this is pretty cool, as I would say. And yeah, in general, very, very similar. You have to search for the differences, as, like I said, they have the same sensor, only the color processing and the additional sensor on the P50 Pro is helping. When it comes to zoom shots, I did a zoom comparison already, also including the Mate 40 Pro versus the P50 Pro. There you can, of course, take a look at in more detail, but here I did 3.5 times zoom, 3.5 times zoom. It's digitally on the Mate 40 Pro, it's optically on the P50 Pro, so it's clearly the winner here, but the Mate 40 Pro is not far off. As you can see here, it's wonderful. Both shoot wonderful pictures in 3.5 times zoom, and the same goes for 5 times zoom. There's a dedicated 5 times hybrid zoom option on the Mate 40 Pro that works wonders, and as you can see, it looks also pretty cool and pretty good. The only difference is here, again, the P50 Pro has a bit of a sharper lens, or a bit of sharpening applied through technology using the macro lens, using the monochrome lens, I mean here, to add more details into the frame. What we can see is also a color shift again. We have more yellowish color here on the left, but also a more brighter picture on the left, and on the right it's more true to life, more realistic in this case as well, because the brickwork is a bit a bit darker. When it comes to macro shots, there's a very interesting thing here that appears. We can see we have much more bokeh on the left. We have a bit of different colors as well on the left. This simply means that in macro mode it is switching from the main lens to the ultra wide angle lens automatically if you have AI enabled, and the macro lens or the ultra wide angle lens has a much brighter, bigger sensor, I think, on the Mate 40 Pro. This creates this bokeh effect, but also a more narrow field of view, and you get like super detailed, crisp details here, and it looks very natural as well of the leaves here and the little droplets on the leaf. And when we take a look at the P50 Pro, it's not so impressive, I have to say. Of course, we have now the droplets in the front also sharp. This could mean we have either a smaller aperture or a smaller sensor, but in general what we have is a larger field of view with that we can see at the end as well. But here in the macro shots, that clearly makes it like not so fantastic in this case. And you can see also sharpening is heavily applied here. It doesn't look as natural. These little hairs here on the leaf doesn't look as natural as on the Mate 40 Pro. So when it comes to those automatically kicking in macro shots, I would say the Mate 40 Pro has an edge here, definitely over the P50 Pro. When it comes to capturing fast-moving subjects with the zoom lens, it's always a problem. And it has historically always been a problem on Huawei devices because they have some kind of shutter lag that is always there. And in this case, a quick snapshot in automatic mode from a B or off a B, you can see the B is not sharp at all. You can see that it's probably a B, but it's not sharp at all. I'm not sure, maybe the background here is sharp. But it is hard to do. It's almost impossible to do, especially if you zoomed in. In 1 times zooming mode or in 1 times lens, it is possible. Sometimes, not always, but it's not for sports shots. The P50 Pro claims to have a faster autofocusing system, so I took it to a test, and I have to say, I'm not 100% convinced, but it is faster. You can see here that I managed to capture the bee here with the slight little hair that you can see around the flower, and the bee is just collecting the what is it? The dust of the flowers, the pollen of the flowers, and you can see the little details here. It is, of course, this is 3.5 times zoom digitally or optically, hybrid, digital optic hybrid, the 5 times zoom option on the Mate 40 Pro. The first zoom option basically that you can go into on the Mate 40 Pro, and I used this first zoom option as well on the P50 Pro, and as you can see here, it managed to capture something that you can clearly say it is definitely better, and it nailed the focus definitely a bit better. So the P50 Pro has some improvements, but it's not groundbreaking improvements, I would say, but it is definitely there. So if you have fast moving subjects that you want to photograph in zoom mode, definitely the P50 Pro has an edge here. Also, when it comes to zoom modes like 10 times zoom, I know I made a zoom test, and you can take a look at this in one of the cards that will appear probably, or one of the last videos, that the Mate 40 Pro and the P50 Pro are not so far away from each other, but now in nature we can see here the difference of 10 times zoom. You can, without zooming in, you can clearly see that there seems to be a lot more sharper on the P50 Pro, and if I zoom in, you can see there's a haze, some kind of haze going on the Mate 40 Pro, and it's not so sharp. Even if it wouldn't have this haze, it is not so sharp. Now, what is this sharpness? If I see here this flower, it looks a bit, we compare it here to, where is this flower? Oh, it's hidden here. Okay, we cannot see it, but it looks a bit over processed here. Details are a bit lacking. It's getting like into a color mishmash that you can also see here as well. And the colors are more natural on the P50 Pro thanks to the dedicated color sensor. So it is more orange than yellowish, the flower. That's definitely the case, especially in this part shadow that we had here as well. And what we can see here as well, the combination of different sensors. So the monochrome sensor is definitely used for creating more details, to put more details into the frame here as well. Then this haze, we can come later to why there might be a haze that might distract a little bit and might somehow change the picture into a bit of worse picture. But even without the haze, the details are still lacking, and we have a clearer shot with the P50 Pro. So 10 times zoom, you get a better shot with the P50 Pro. When it comes to zoom shots with fast moving subjects, I had some bunnies here as well in the park running around, and I tried my best to get a clear shot with the Mate 40 Pro, and it didn't really work out. I used, I think it was 5 times digital shot on both. And what we can see here is this is the best I got, where they are somehow sharp, and you can see I have managed to catch 3, but you can see the quality is not as breathtaking as the 5 times digital one on the P50 Pro that worked a lot better. What I have to say here is I took a manual shot in Pro mode, because what I wanted to do is avoid this shutter lag by setting a shutter speed manually to avoid the shutter lag that I usually get with the auto mode, to see if this works. It works a lot better on the Mate 40 Pro, I have to say, because you can get subjects or objects clearer at least, and it works a treat, also improving a tiny little bit on the improvements already on the P50 Pro when it comes to moving subjects in the zoom lens. We can see that this rabbit or this bunny is a really good captured. First of all, I managed to get closer. There was only one left, one who was kind enough to let himself photograph, and this was like during he wanted to jump away, he was jumping. So this was when he was jumping, not standing still or something like this. So he was jumping, and I managed to catch a shot. But again, there is a shutter lag on the P50 Pro. Again, there is a shutter lag, just like on the Mate 40 Pro, but it is not as big as on the Mate 40 Pro. So this helped me to get this shot clear. And of course, because of all the other information of other different lenses that are put together, I got a pretty good shot, I think, on this bunny here. And the next shot, I want to explain a little bit about HDR. I want to check out if HDR is the same. It's nearly the same. You can see there's, is there a difference? When there is a difference, it's a slight difference. But what you can see here is a small haze. There's also a small haze, but if you go here to the tree, you can see it a bit more. And one thing that could be the issue with my Mate 40 Pro is that I have the back glass of the lenses that has a cut. and this cut in certain light conditions can create a haze. So this explains also maybe the haze that I had when taking the macro shot. That can explain them, but usually you don't notice this as much in taking photos. I wanted to say it so that if you have different experiences with your Mate 40 Pro, it might be that it is exactly behaving the same as the P50 Pro when it comes to dynamic range, high dynamic range. You can see maybe slightly better on the P50 Pro in dynamic range, high dynamic range, but it's really very slightly, only subtle change, and it could be also because of the glass that is used in front of the lens. So this is basically what I wanted to say about high dynamic range. High dynamic range is great, wonderful, no issues at all. Let's compare the ultra wide angle lenses. On the left hand we can say it is not really ultra wide, it is the cine lens, and maybe we shouldn't call it ultra wide angle because it is a fairly limited field of view that we have with 18 millimeters, but it is a wide angle already. And on the right side, on the P50 Pro, we definitely have an ultra wide angle with 13 millimeters field of view, and you can see the difference here. Same spot, same daylight. We can see a color shift again, which leads me to the conclusion that there's a different sensor in use as well. So you can see it's more yellowish here. Again, I think it is also using the color sensor, the special color sensor. So this is why the colors here are more realistic, to be honest, because here you can see it also has this one, but the rest is a bit cooled down. And not sure why that is, but you can see also here, the details. When we take a look at the details, clearly the winner is the Mate 40 Pro, which simply has something to do with less field of view, less wide field of view, which is the first thing. The other thing is like it has 20 megapixel wide angle, and the 13 megapixel wide angle here on the P50 Pro is also a difference. Less megapixels, less things to have details. Basically, you can see this here also in the wood. That you can see much more details on the Mate 40 Pro. And let's take a look at the last photo to see again the change in ultra wide angle, both from the same distance, and you can see here is just the wall, and here you can see above the wall even the roof, and a lot more left and right of this graffiti wall. And when we zoom in, you can see there's some details visible here, and it's a good 13 megapixel ultra wide angle that the P50 Pro has, but of course nothing beats the very good and sharp details of the Mate 40 Pro when it comes to the ultra wide angle, simply because the field of view is not so wide and because the megapixels are a lot more, and you can see a lot more details in the brickwork here of the Mate 40 Pro. So this is the main difference in terms of photography. And these are all photos that I took with the P50 and the Mate 40 Pro. So this is everything for the comparison of the Mate 40 Pro against the P50 Pro. Which of those devices is the clear winner? Write it down in the comment section. Both devices, in my opinion, are very good. When it comes to taking photos, I think the P50 Pro has a slight edge against the Mate 40 Pro, but it is really neck to neck, and I think in terms of video with the cine lens you still have a better quality on the Mate 40 Pro. What do you think? Write it down in the comment section. If you like this video, give it a like, share and subscribe. I'm almost reaching 5,000 subscribers, and with 5,000 subscribers I can reach out to companies to send me sample devices, which is pretty cool and awesome. So subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. That is everything for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Until the next time, bye.